for the Best Start Family Hubs, creating a community response to domestic abuse. Welcome on this much colder and windier afternoon. It's great to have you with us. We're just going to give a few minutes for everybody to come in from the waiting room there. We'll be joining, starting probably in about 3 minutes, Daisy, would you say? Perfect. So if you haven't got a cuppa, please go grab one.
I think we're probably good to go, Judith. It's starting to slow down with people coming in through the lobby, so I'll just keep letting people in as and when.
Lovely. Thank you, Daisy. Okay, again, welcome everybody that's here this afternoon for joining us on our Best Start Family Hubs, creating a community response to domestic abuse. And we've got an action-packed agenda as we move through this afternoon from now until 3 o'clock. So welcome. It's for me. I'm Judith Rees, Chief Operating Officer at the Trust. And as we may move through, we'll hear from Lauren, Susie and Ronnie, who will introduce themselves as we move through to their section. Please do it is a webinar. So for those that are wondering, we have turned off cameras and mics. Not very trauma informed, I know, but it's the way we set up our webinars to be able to make them run smoothly. So, but please do interact using the chat function and put your questions in there, chat with each other as we move through the material this afternoon. We've allowed a short amount of time at the end of the webinar to do some Q&A. If we don't get to all of the questions, we will respond to these and send them out with the webinar recording. So we are recording the webinar this afternoon, and you will get a copy of that for all attendees or all those that signed up to join us. As we move through this next hour, please be aware of your own emotional safety. We're talking about emotions, domestic abuse, and that may be cause some triggers or make people feel uncomfortable. So please do look after yourself. Reach out to us at the end of the webinar or to your own teams. So first of all, I'd like to move on to Lauren to introduce herself to start us off with the webinar this afternoon. Thanks, Lauren.
Thanks, Judith. Daisy, just a quick check-in. Has everyone else got sound okay? I know we had...
I haven't had any other reports of sound issues, okay. So yeah, do send that.
Thumbs up.
Yes.
Super helpful. Thank you. Good. I didn't want to talk to myself. Not right now. Thanks, Judith. Next slide. So I'm Lauren, CEO of the For Baby's Sake Trust. So really lovely to be here with you today. So what we're going to take you through in this hour we've got together, which isn't very long at all, is just looking a little bit from our perspective around the role of family hubs, particularly in addressing domestic abuse and building emotional safety from pregnancy onwards. I'm going to give you a little bit of the history and role of family hubs. Some of you can go and make a cup of tea at that point, but those of you that are interested, it was interesting to me. It's quite good just for setting the groundwork. And then we're going to move into how can family hubs help support that trusted, non-judgmental space for parents to access support for domestic abuse. And then we're going to be hearing from colleagues in Blackpool, colleagues working in London, as examples of what can that look like in terms of working in family hubs, including co-location and opportunities for partnership work. Thanks, Judith. Apologies if you can hear rain. I'm just outside Reading and it's a deluge. So we're all right here in Reading, but lots of noisy rain. So what matters particularly to the For Baby's Sake Trust is really thinking about that role of family hubs to reach families in communities who are impacted by domestic abuse. And those of you who aren't familiar with our work, we work from pregnancy up until the baby's second birthday with the whole family to break those cycles of trauma and intergenerational harm, to give that baby the best start in life. And some of you that will be really familiar to this, you will all have come from different backgrounds, but we know that that first 1001 days are absolutely crucial to a baby's life. And a really big role of family hubs is being able to get in and give that support right from the start. So we know that experiencing domestic abuse has significant impacts on babies and children, and around one in 5 children in the UK grow up in a home with domestic abuse. Around a third of domestic abuse begins or escalates in pregnancy, and our own work showed that this can rise to 40% within the baby's first 1001 days of life. So again, absolutely critical that we look at how our work within communities can really help to break down that shame and stigma and support help for domestic abuse. Thanks, Judith. So we did some work with a Freedom of Information request last year to try and understand exactly how many babies were impacted by domestic abuse. And you can see here, we put out to social care services around the country to see how many babies were being referred with domestic abuse as a primary factor. And we found over 50,000 babies, and around at least, we've got there, thousands of babies being taken into care each year because of domestic abuse. Next slide. And again, we did a piece of work with police forces across the UK, again, to see how many babies were present at police call-outs for domestic abuse. And then, as we can see, very staggeringly high numbers of babies who are present at those police call-outs. Thanks, Judith. So what's the role of family hubs within all this? Well, as we've said, they're absolutely critical for being able to give that community-based support right from the start, right from pregnancy and even before. And what we do know around research around parents and domestic abuse, around how do parents access help and support, it really depends on their circumstances, safety concerns, what's available and levels of awareness. But what we do know is that parents who are able to share what they're experiencing are most likely to share that with health professionals. So when we look at the role of family hubs, those health professionals are absolutely critical. So they may disclose to GPs, family doctors, also midwives or health visitors, especially during pregnancy or postnatal care. We also know that parents will disclose to schools and childcare settings, family hubs, which we'll be talking about today, charities, legal and police services, helplines and online support. But we'll go on to consider what might be some of the barriers and also ways to kind of overcome those barriers for families. Next slide. So what are some of those barriers? Well, we know that some parents will delay seeking help or will find it really hard to seek help for domestic abuse. And there can be lots of different reasons for that. But some of those reasons include a very real fear of losing custody of children, shame or stigma. So our own polling that we did with really large amounts of parents during lockdown found with those parents that 60% said shame and stigma was a barrier to seeking help. So we know that has a real impact. Financial dependence on the partner that's using abusive behaviours, a lack of awareness about available support, but also just assuming that support won't be available. And what are some of those barriers? Well, really importantly, a lack of funding for local services, and we'll come on to that, a lack of specialist support and understanding around domestic abuse, and that links to a lack of training in domestic abuse for all professionals working with families. While it's really important to have specialist services for domestic abuse, we can't predict who parents are going to open up to, and that's why it's really important for everybody working on the front line and family hubs to have that awareness and that training around domestic abuse and to be able to create that safe space. And we also know that there's been a lack of integrated provision as well. So it's really hard for people when they have to keep telling the same story over and over again. That can be really traumatic in and of itself. So it's making sure that professionals are really working well together to give families the support that they need. And that's why, as we've said, community-based services like those offered by family hubs are really, really crucial. Thanks, Judith. And I just want to say on that as well, at the For Baby's Sake Trust, we take a trauma-informed whole family intersectional approach to domestic abuse, and as well as the need for integrated services to make sure that, you know, families aren't having to tell their stories over and over again. We also know that for families who are impacted by domestic abuse, very often they're impacted by poverty. Very often they're impacted by, you know, insecure status. They're impacted by substance misuse. They're impacted by mental ill health. And again, it's so important, therefore, that professionals are able to work together to be able to refer families on to other sources of support. So, history of family hubs. I told you I wasn't going to spend too long on this, but it was quite interesting having a bit of a dig and seeing what I could find out there. Many of us will remember Sure Start. That's the old logo up there, and now we've moved into the time of family hubs. But of course, there's nothing new under the sun, is there? And I'm sure we all keep muttering that to ourselves as we see another iteration with the Best Start family hubs. But this all began 1949 with the concept of child welfare centres in post-war planning. And then we've seen over the years, haven't we, going through these different iterations. Of course, Sure Start was huge, 450 million allocated, and we all remember those centres nationwide. And in fact, it was interesting looking at this. I remember my children now are 12 and 14. I remember taking my baby girl, to baby massage at the local Sure Start centre. So it's interesting, isn't it, when you think of your own history and how you've been impacted by these different government shifts and changes. And then we moved with Conservative government into the family hubs. And what we've seen now with the new government coming in is that expansion on that work in family hubs. But they'll talk, and we'll come on to the next slide. Thanks, Judith. Around from the current government's perspective, it's very much the narrative of building on what went before with Sure Start centres. And I should say, I'm not here to speak for governments. I can't tell you anything about money, but I can tell you a little bit around kind of what we think is happening and what we understand. So 22 to 25, we had the 75 local authorities selected to implement family hubs and Start for Life. That expansion of services, including perinatal health, infant feeding support, early language development, parenting programs, these things that are really important for that 1001 days. And there we have some review findings around the Centre for Social Justice. And now, of course, most recently, we've had the Best Start in Life strategy and the various guidance documents that have been shared by government around that. Next slide, Judith. So what is the Best Start Family Hubs programme? Many of you, those of you that are working in family hubs, I won't dwell on this too long, will be really familiar around this. But as we've said, it's seeking to draw particularly on lessons from Sure Start. And as we know, finally, the kind of evaluation documents around that came out. And the plan is to roll this out for all local authorities. Again, I can't speak for government. I don't know quite how and when. But what's that going to look like? It's going to look like universal access, but with targeted support. So really thinking about those young families most in need of support. It's about, as we touched on, being able to integrate services in one place, and that co-location is really important. So we're understanding the intersectional needs of families. As we said, they're not having to repeat their stories, they're being able to come to one place and be able to get the support that they need. We've been talking to some of our parents about what really matters with family hubs, and what was really interesting was one parent saying, and we were looking specifically around domestic abuse, but the parent talking about the need to have your practical needs met. And so coming somewhere that's not just offering support for domestic abuse, but it's also looking at what else you need, be that nappies, be that other support for your baby, be that financial advice, you know. So again, being able to bring all of that into one place is really important. Particularly the guidance is looking at that core offer for parents, and how do you help parents to support their children's emotional needs? How do you bring in that support for children with additional needs? And a lot of interest around kind of support around parental conflict as well, and the opportunity again that hubs offer for families. We know that linked to it is going to be the Best Start digital parenting hub, and I know a lot of you that are already involved in Family Hub have a combination of the kind of face-to-face service, but also what you can offer through your online service and your website, how to link up to other resources and support in the local area. Importantly, it's calling for that community engagement and co-design, which is so important, particularly if we're going to engage fathers and we're going to engage young parents, to make sure that for everybody it feels like a safe space. And also the importance of evidence-based programs within local areas. And what it's seeking to achieve is that 75% of a good level of development milestones for babies. Next slide. So family hubs and domestic abuse. Family hubs, again, as we've said, have that opportunity to offer that integrated support. So the things that we've touched on, your specialist domestic abuse services, your intensive targeted family support, that support for families and support for parental conflict is really important. Being able to get in really, really early. I heard a statistic recently that 1 in 5 of all couples separate by the time the baby's 12 months old. So we're talking about, yes, we're talking about domestic abuse, but we know for all families that those early years are really, really challenging times. That importance of mental health and parenting support, which goes hand in hand with domestic abuse work, and that support for perinatal mental health being absolutely critical, not just for mums, but also for dads, as we know that that's a huge protective factor. So multi-agency collaboration, as we said, that wonderful opportunity for a joined up approach. Also the opportunity for education and prevention work as well. So how can we use that opportunity of family hubs to give that parenting support, but to also think about what is it that young people need in order to be able to develop those healthy relationships and have a safe space to talk. And as we've touched on, that opportunity for a combination of both local and remote access support. And now over to Judith.
Thank you, Lauren. Handing back to me. Thank you so much for setting the scene. I'm just going to move through a series of slides now. I can't see the chat as I'm presenting, but for those, maybe you could add in there about what you think family hubs are offering or what you are offering or could offer as we move through the presentation as well, so you can share what's going on with others that have joined the call today. That would be great. So let's think about creating those safe spaces that Lauren spoke about. Family hubs are able to create welcoming environments, promoting trust and respect that empower both staff and families. Inclusive practices ensure support is accessible to all parents. Culturally sensitivity and language support reduces those barriers to accessing support. Flexible services accommodate diverse family needs. Safe, non-judgmental spaces encourage that open communication that's needed, and that collaborative partnerships enhance community engagement and inclusion. Family hubs are able to provide that really designated quiet private rooms or spaces that allow for these confidential conversations that our parents experiencing domestic abuse need. And family hubs can embed support for emotional health and resilience for both the parents and for the professionals working within them. So how can family hubs offer a trusted, non-judgmental space for parents to access this domestic abuse support? They can support be around the impact of stigma that can be reduced. Stigma around seeking help can prevent parents experiencing domestic abuse from accessing the necessary support services. So it's this making sure that it's a safe space where parents are not going to feel stigmatized for walking into a building that others may think they're accessing no support for domestic abuse, which is why family hubs are such a great space that's universal, that parents are not going to feel stigmatized. Thinking about language and communication barriers that can be overcome. Language differences can create barriers to effective communication, access and support. So it's really making sure that they're really inclusive in the information and services that are offered, and especially around domestic abuse. And again, really keep coming back to creating those safe environments is possible. Family hubs can develop safe, welcoming spaces to encourage anyone experiencing domestic abuse to seek advice and support. And that's for the person that's experiencing the abuse, but also the person that's causing harm within the family as well. Just going to share as we move through the presentation some of the resources that we use at the For Baby's Sake Trust and are free to download and access at our website. One of them is looking at the parental relationship spectrum, and as Lauren spoke about, you know, the spectrum from healthy relationships to parental conflict across to domestic abuse, and thinking about what the parents may need and what is the presenting as they move across the spectrum. Not that they move across the spectrum, but as we look at the different aspects of a relationship. But what's really important when we're talking about family hubs is what is the impact on the babies and children's within that family, and what do they need. On the reverse of this PDF. It's really how to help you as professionals and for parents to think about how we can open up those conversations, and really using motivational interviewing conversations and that real active listening techniques to open up the conversations. Very often parents won't resonate with domestic abuse or thinking it's domestic violence. So really building up, opening up those conversations with questions. So there's some examples here around saying instead, what aspects of your relationship trouble you? What would you change if you had the opportunity? How understanding is your partner? How safe do you feel at home in your relationship? And as you can see, you can build up these questions to really help parents think about when you're talking about them. And we'll come on to think a bit more about how we make every contact count. So please do hop over to the website and have a look at the spectrum that you can download. Also, it's thinking when we're having those conversations, we're using those motivational interviewing techniques, but also thinking with around that is about how you have a trauma-informed conversation and what that means, and how you can implement effective support strategy. And again, this is on the slide for you to share and use in practice and share with your colleagues. But it's really thinking around understanding the trauma, communicating with empathy on every contact, always thinking what's behind how someone's presenting, and using that supportive, non-judgmental language, and allowing the parent to lead. Because what this does through active listening is build trust, by being transparent, respecting confidentiality, but also knowing when to share, but also sharing when we need to share with our parents, and being consistent with messages across, especially services within the Family Hub, but really empowering individuals so that they can be validated and that they've been able to speak up, but acknowledge their strengths so that they can build the courage and resilience to make the choices that are right for them at the right time. Just a reminder of how domestic abuse may show up in the parents that access in Family Hubs, things that you may see and then want to be more curious about with a parent. So physical injuries, frequent absences that they're reporting for themselves at work or at school, or again, not turning up for sessions that are being delivered through the Family Hub. Just a change of personality and maybe presenting with low self-esteem, or actually speaking around fear of their partner. And the effective responses may show up differently, as in anxiety, depression, asking those curious questions, what sits behind this when this is seen, withdrawal when otherwise engaged, heightened fear, and emotional instability. So just a quick sort of whiz through what you may see presenting. So addressing domestic abuse and building emotional safety from pregnancy onward, what does this mean? This means creating a sense of psychological security for everyone, a feeling of being safe, valued and heard. It allows individuals to express themselves without fear of judgment or retaliation. For those experiencing or using abusive behaviour, emotional safety can be a lifeline, helping them navigate complex emotions and relationships. For all practitioners and professionals in this space, emotional safety is essential to maintain emotional and mental well-being for themselves, but for our babies and children. Emotional safety planning is a structured approach to support anyone in identifying their emotional triggers, understanding how stress and trauma affect them, and developing personalised strategies to manage difficult feelings, which we know so often go along with domestic abuse. And again, this is really emphasising those messages that we've already given around the importance for professionals working in domestic abuse to ensure that we build that trust, empower individuals and create safe spaces for healing. So embedding emotional safety in your work can provide the care. Providing this care can be emotional and can have an impact on the wellbeing and emotional safeties of those providing care. So we have to look after ourselves in order to look after those that we're working with, especially where there's domestic abuse. And you'll see, and Ronnie, I'll touch on this at the end, that we've developed emotional safety plans, resources with Best Beginnings in co-production with parents, which is a simple tool to help you as professionals, but also parents we're working with, to really establish strategies for emotional self-care, manage stress, thinking about our triggers so that we can be resilient to maintain emotional and mental well-being. And so, yeah, and again, this is for us as professionals, which we have to think about, but also for those parents that we're working with that have experienced domestic abuse in the family hubs. So coming back to think about family hubs, how they play such a crucial role in addressing domestic abuse through prevention, support and collaboration. Make every contact count, whatever someone's coming into the family hub to access. By overcoming challenges and embracing opportunities, we can better serve vulnerable families and contribute to safer communities. And by embedding asking questions about the parental relationship at every contact. Be curious, think about what sits behind, and be curious about everyone's relationship, because we know relationships heal relationships, and our relationships with parents is going to better enable relationships with parents with their babies and children. Just a reminder how to support parents when we've opened up those often difficult conversations around domestic abuse. If there is a crisis, remember, the most important thing to do is listen without judgment, and checking regularly with someone that has disclosed domestic abuse. Be alert to those warning signs and encourage that professional support through specialist services, onward referring, but also stay in that support for that person. Pay attention to both co-parents, co-create physical and emotional safety plans with them. Respect confidentiality, but also know when to act and refer on when needed when there's safeguarding concerns. Enhancing skills for family hub professionals. Here at the For Baby's Sake Trust, want to just let you know that we offer comprehensive and bespoke trauma-informed training on domestic abuse. So if this is something that you would like at your family hubs able to offer, please do get in touch. All the details will be at the end, and we can offer that bespoke training, especially around domestic abuse in 1001 important days. And we support developing trauma-informed communication to open up those conversations. That's part of our training offer. We can support you in building emotional safety for every contact with families, and really support that collaborative approach for multi-agency working that Lauren spoke about in the beginning, not just in the 1001 days, but especially then, but throughout the life course of families accessing support in the family hubs. And really important, we support self-care and managing emotional well-being for all professionals. So again, please do reach out that we can offer this specialist comprehensive trauma-informed training on domestic abuse for you in family hubs. I just want to finish my section before I move on and try and stop it before it starts playing, is that we are working with the Royal Foundation to cascade their launch that some of you may have seen, and if not, their short animated films from the Centre for Early Childhood, the Explainer series. And I've just got one of these. These are really short videos with psycho-educational information to go with them. And I think these would be really great to embed in your support at family hubs. This is one around managing big feelings together.
When we're born, we don't have a guide for handling all the feelings we encounter. So when we're young and big feelings like fear, frustration or excitement come up, we don't always know how to respond. That's normal. But children can learn how to deal with these feelings with guidance from caring adults. One way this happens is through something called co-regulation. Co-regulation means using our calm presence to help a child understand and manage their emotions, helping them cope and return to calm. To do this, we often have to start by regulating our own feelings, like putting on your oxygen mask first on a plane. We have to steady ourselves to support others. Co-regulation looks different for each child, and it changes as they grow. For babies, it's as simple as being cuddled, sung to or rocked to help them to calm down when they are crying. For young children, it could be talking through their feelings, giving them space to calm down, or just sitting and breathing together until the storm passes. It's not about trying to squash the feelings. It's okay for children to feel sad, scared or angry at times. When we co-regulate, we help them to manage these feelings. People once thought co-regulation made children too dependent, but now the science shows it builds their independence. When adults respond sensitively to a child's distress, it builds a child's trust, security and belief that the world is safe. It shows them they are deeply loved. Through co-regulation, we can help children learn how to understand and manage all sorts of different emotions. And that builds their wider social and emotional skills. Skills which are vital for shaping a happy, healthy life.
No, we don't want to play YouTube. Why are you not moving on?
Donald Trump is already trying to steal.
No, we don't want to do that. I really saw moving on the slide, so I'm just going to stop 1 second and we share. Apologies for that. I'm just going to move to the correct slide. Apologies. So just as I'm moving on, oh, why is it doing this? Real apologies, everybody. Nope, it's not doing that. I'm going to stop sharing. Oh, there we go. I've got there in the end. Thank you for your patience. Hopefully you can see how by playing those explainer films that they can really open the conversations, especially where parents might not talk about domestic abuse, but when you talk about feelings, then they may open up around those conversations. So please do have a look at those. They're a great tool to have in the toolbox when working with parents. So now I'd like to move on. Susie is with us from Blackpool, and I'll let you introduce yourself, Susie. Thank you.
Hi everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me today. It's really good to come and talk about the work that we're doing in Blackpool. Obviously, you can see there from my massive name on the screen. I'm Susie Robertson, Service Manager in Early Help. And that's a team that covers a wide range of responsibilities, including family hubs. So, next slide, please. And on to the next one. So, I'm not going to go through the history of family hubs, luckily, because Lauren's already done that so brilliantly for us. So in terms of Blackpool, I suppose there is a bit of history that I can fill in between Sure Starts and the launch of family hubs nationally in the 75 local areas, was that we had in Blackpool piloted a family hub approach in one of our children's centres, kind of quite locally, with the support of our brilliant partnership in Blackpool. And we were fortunate to be involved in some of the development work around family hubs. So we feel like we've been doing family hub work for quite a long time. And of course, for many of you who've been doing that work, particularly if you've been doing that back to the days of Sure Start, then a lot of this will feel familiar. We were one of the 75 local authorities nationally that received funding in the first round of family hubs, and I've got to start getting used to calling them Best Start family hubs now. We were also a trailblazer in the work stream around parent-infant relationships and mental health. As it's already been kind of said today, and I'm sure for many of you already know that, that work was around the development of family hubs and what was then that Start for Life offer, so that first 1,001 days, but with an offer in family hubs that is for children 0 to 19 or up to 25 for those who have special educational needs and disabilities. So for context, we have also been very lucky to have the For Baby's Sake service running in Blackpool now for 5 years. And I guess just for a bit of context there as well, that was hugely supported both by the For Baby's Sake Trust, but by our local Better Start partnership. Better Start, very lucky to have that in Blackpool, 10 years of significant lottery investment into the town focused on that Start for Life age range. The For Baby's Sake team are located here in Blackpool within Children's Services in the local authority. And I'll go on to talk a little bit about how we integrate that work with our work in family hubs. But I just thought I'd add in here that another bit of context really for us in Blackpool is that we've also been one of the Born into Care research sites, and that's been very much fundamental to our thinking about our approach. So the kind of twin track really of what is our approach to all babies from conception to 2, but I suppose with the local context that we know that we have a significant challenge around the number of babies in Blackpool who are born into care. So next slide, please, Judith. So yeah, just a very quick run through, because I'm sure for many of you, you're absolutely familiar with this if you're already working in family hubs or alongside them. So when we started our family hub work in Blackpool, these were the work streams. So that first one was around the development of the hubs themselves. So that's about the physical space, our workforce, sort of thinking, I suppose, about that creating that welcoming, non-judgmental space. So very much about how those family hubs would feel for families, how it would feel for our staff to be delivering services through those hubs, making good the kind of physical assets that we had, as well as thinking about how do we bring all the right people together to create that whole system of support for babies and parents in that age range. Then we absolutely had the Start for Life offer with those focused areas: infant feeding, parent-infant relationships, parenting support, home learning environment, and those parent carer panels. And of course, you can see from kind of what Lauren talked about in her presentation earlier, the bits of that, the best bits of that, I suppose, that go into the new work streams around Best Start family hubs. So we'll go on to the next slide, if that's okay. So this is, I suppose, a bit of a whirlwind tour, really, of what we've done in those different work streams in Blackpool. And the reason I'm sharing this really is because I suppose it's really important for us to say that for baby's sake, as a specialist offer of support for babies and their parents, sits within this wider system of support that is delivered via our family hubs. And we think that that's been absolutely critical to the success of both of those things, actually, the success of the hubs and the success of the For Baby's Sake service in the town. So, yeah, just a whistle stop. I won't go through everything, but quite happy to answer questions afterwards or take any other inquiries later. So infant feeding, lots of work done in Blackpool around infant feeding. We invested in an app, Anya, which supports with positive infant feeding messages, and that's a free service that's available to all parents, where they can get immediate access to help and support around, particularly around breastfeeding. We developed a pump loan scheme, so that has been particularly focused and very well received by parents, on those parents who sadly experience some separation from their babies at birth and who want to continue to build those positive attachments and give their babies the best start by continuing to breastfeed. So that has been successfully used by families who've also been supported by the For Baby's Sake team, and something we're really proud of. We commissioned Henry with that practical support to parents around infant feeding, both at the breastfeeding stage and moving into weaning and solids. And then critical, I mean, you'll see this in all of the areas that we've done work on. We've done lots of training and workforce development for professionals and communities. So that's been something that's been really important to us. It's very easy to say, but the idea that really family hubs are not just a building and a space, but a whole system. So parent-infant relationships and mental health. We were a trailblazer, as I said, and that was because of the work that we did, particularly around support for dads. So lots of training for our early help workforce who are delivering that intensive family support on the continuum of need, as well as some really good co-production work that we did with a peer support offer. Lots of other work that we've done, interesting stuff around extra resource into our parent-infant relationship service, and some neonatal support that's delivered by one of our local voluntary sector organisation, Lancashire Women. So that is support where there are extra health needs for that baby that might require some neonatal support. So some counselling support for parents that can be put immediately into practice on the ward. So preventing that kind of delay for that specialist support for parents. Lots of therapeutic work in that parent-infant relationship space, including art at the start, which is a lovely therapeutic play group that we deliver, where we again we support that attachment between parents and their babies using art as the mechanism. So I'll just move on to the next slide. So home learning environment, I won't dwell on this for too long, but lots of practical things that we've done in Blackpool around home learning environment, including a big investment in evidence-based programmes and resources around speech and language. So early talk based and early talk. We've trained all of our early help workforce in those programmes. We have a range of groups that deliver through our family hub spaces that are focused on that development of speech and language, as well as other more specific targeted ready for school sessions. Some of those have been on helping to build parents' confidence around their readiness for school, and that's been particularly interesting for us. We've got lots of learning for that in the sort of post-COVID era. We're really proud of our parenting offer through Family Hubs in Blackpool. We've invested in training across a number of evidence-based programmes. We plumped for Triple P. And actually, since we've put this slide together, there's been lots more development on that. So yeah, a number of evidence-based parenting programmes that are delivered face-to-face and as a virtual offer. And you can see there's with programmes that run right through the age ranges. Okay, the next slide, please. So parent carer panels, another really important element of the delivery of family hubs, and particularly important for us as we also deliver for baby's sake, has been this real commitment in Blackpool to co-production. So parent carer panels here in Blackpool run really well, that we have a number of parents who have lived experience of services, right from a universal up to a very targeted and acute level, who are fundamental to the governance of hubs. So actively involved in making decisions about what we deliver and how we do it, as well as contributing to that delivery themselves. So opening up lots of opportunities for volunteering. And we have a number of our families who've been supported through For Baby's Sake who have joined those parent carer panels and kind of presented at national events and certainly challenged us to do our business differently in Blackpool. Send support. We have a range of activities and groups. We offer services for families on Saturdays that have a send focus, as well as lots of collaborative work with the Parent Forum. And then in development, really, our offer for children over 5. So lots of after school sessions, positive family activities. So next slide, please. So For Baby's Sake team are physically based in our family hubs alongside all of these different professionals and services. And I think that's really been the key learning for us, although it also has posed some challenges. What we really, so it's really important for us to build those partnership relationships because, you know, for us in Blackpool, we're quite a small town, but with a high level of need. And having that kind of on the ground co-location, and obviously I'm sure for many of you this won't come as a surprise at all. Physically being based together just improves relationships and improves communication. But what's also important is just going back to the point that's been made earlier about that identification of domestic abuse for parents at the very earliest stage. That co-location and the co-location and of the delivery of those services is also really important. So what that means is we can really streamline and speed up the access for families to those services. But not only were we able to identify those challenges for families earlier on, but we're also able to build a network for those families, a network of support that sustains, and a network that's in the heart of their community, with 3 family hubs in Blackpool, each in the heart of a deprived community. And we believe strongly that family hubs play a critical role, particularly for baby's sake, in supporting parents to become a part of and build that community. So to help give them the opportunity to also contribute. That said, I also mentioned that we have some challenges, and I think it's always better to kind of share what those challenges are and what we're thinking about doing about those. So we know that family hubs, it is very mixed use of the space. So, for example, in many of our family hubs, we also deliver things like child protection conferences, or that might be some of the space where families who might end up spending some time parents separated from their children, they might come to a family hub to also have their family time. So it's been really important to us that we keep some space that's very protected, kind of therapeutic space that's also helps to create that emotional safety that Judith talked about. And of course, our biggest challenges come in the future as we see both how the Best Start Family Hub work develops, but also how that links to Families First partnership. So I'll just move on to my last slide very quickly. So the other bit of the integration work that's been really important for us has been the strategic governance and operational links. So we govern our local For Baby's Sake team in the same space as family hubs. So that includes those key people. So our local integrated care board, public health, including those commissioned services, children's social care and adult focused services. And then very much focused on that work that we're all doing, which is about moving from integration into transformation. So the work that we do in our Born Into Care work, all of that continued work to support the workforce, as well as our focus on co-production in Blackpool. So I've whizzed through that because I've run a bit over time. I apologise.
That's brilliant. Thanks so much, Susie. I delayed getting to you as well. So no, that's brilliant. Thank you so much. And I'm just going to hand it over to Ronnie, team manager in the London For Baby's Sake team. Thanks, Ronnie.
Thanks, Judith, and thanks, Suzanne and Lauren earlier as well. Thanks, Judith, for the next slide. So For Baby's Sake, we've talked a little bit about how it works, and I'll just recap a bit here. One of our main plus points is we work with the whole family and working with those who experience domestic abuse, as well as those who use abusive behaviours. And the whole purpose is to break those intergenerational cycles of abuse and trauma. As we know, experiencing domestic abuse impacts mental health, physical health and life chances for babies and children. Very much with a safeguarding lens on, we prioritise safety, and our practitioners work together to monitor levels of risk and to participate in group case management, and they're supported through a robust supervision structure and within a robust multi-agency safeguarding structure too. The practitioners build deep therapeutic relationships, and we offer support up until the baby's 2nd birthday. We're measuring outcomes along the way on the baby's timeline and providing interventions and outcomes during this really critical time in the baby's development, those crucial 1001 first days. Next slide, please, Judith.
I think, Ronnie, I'm just looking at time so you do justice to your section. I think we introduced a lot of people will have seen our animation, so we'll skip by it today. But if you haven't, please go over and look at it on our website. I'm hoping it's going to click through to the next slide, and it did. Thanks, Ronnie.
Brilliant. As has already been referenced, shame and stigma are huge influences on the parents that we work with, and in their histories, shame lurks invariably. And shame is a feeling that everyone experiences, yet nobody likes talking about it, because even talking about feeling shame can trigger more shame. And we can't make something disappear by ignoring it, so we incorporate it into our programme. we aim to help parents to understand that difference between shame and guilt, with guilt being healthy and shame being toxic, and the difference being feeling bad about what you do is guilt, but feeling bad about who you are is shame. And it's quite liberating for our parents to understand that when they finally get it. We have a tool that we use, a resource that we use, which I think is the next slide.
Thanks, Annie. Yeah.
The compass of shame clarifies how people react to and express their shame. When we feel shame, we usually react with one or more of 4 general patterns: attack others, attack self, withdraw, or avoidance. The first expression is called attack others. For example, when you have been confronted or challenged by your partner in the past for something you have done to them, you might have blamed them so that you stop feeling the shame. Attack others' behavior can include turning the tables on others, blaming others, lashing out verbally at them, physically hurting them, threatening or frightening them. The second response to shame is attack self. You may do this with self-put-downs, by punishing yourself, getting depressed, or getting ill. Some people withdraw when they feel shame because they're so overwhelmed by the feeling. This behavior can include cutting yourself off from others, sulking, ignoring efforts to sort it out, refusing to talk, or pretending it's okay to be alone. The final response is avoidance, which can include denying what happened, making light of it, abusing drugs or alcohol, or distraction through thrill-seeking. Feeling shame is natural, and there are healthy ways we can deal with it before reacting. The first step is to acknowledge why you are feeling shame. Understanding where the shame is coming from can help us communicate with others, build trust, and help us overcome it.
I think when I used the term earlier, liberating, and quite often when a parent sees that animation for the first time and identifies that they're not alone with those feelings, that other people have shame reactions too, it can be a really powerful moment for them. Next slide, please, Judith.
There you go, Ronnie.
Thanks, Judith. Next slide, please, Judith. I'm going to talk a little bit about the way we deliver with family hubs in London. A little bit different to Blackpool. We're not as embedded in family hubs, although we do work from them. And you know, the strength of community engagement, it's such a powerful thing for local families to have an identifiable source that's more or less a one-stop shop for their needs and for their families too. So the whole idea of community engagement, as you see, is building trust within communities, family hubs, improve early identification of family needs, including those experiencing domestic abuse, and they act as accessible local centres connecting families with vital services. And we heard earlier about the range of services that are offered in Blackpool in particular, but in London those services are replicated and some more. It'll obviously vary regionally. They foster partnerships between local organisations to create a unified support network, and that once more is experienced not just in Blackpool but in London too. We've made some really strong collaborative links to families and services in Haringey and in the Byborough in London, and the quality of that relationship, as Suzanne said earlier, to be able to walk across a hall and talk to an organisation that you've got in mind for one of your families is a really important thing. They provide inclusive places that welcome diverse families and promote cultural understanding. And I think some of the hubs that we work in exist within areas that have high levels of multicultural communities. And I'm really impressed by the respect and curiosity involved in enhancing the experience and celebrating cultural difference. In Haringey, in Stamford Hill, there's a huge community of Orthodox Jewish families and also Latin American communities. And both communities have formed bonds and interacted in ways that wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for the shared experience of joining together for activities and services with their children. And of course, that bodes well for future generations if the children are interacting, whereas they might have been polarised within their own communities in the past. And they empower families to participate actively in shaping services and support systems, which I'm sure you'll know yourselves. Next slide, please, Judith.
Has it moved, Ronnie, for you?
No.
Okay, so I'll just move through. It's just gone through to the resources slides.
Yeah. Do you want me to?
Yep, we've just got a couple of minutes. Yeah, thanks,
Oh,
Ronnie.
okay.
No, you go.
So, yeah, if you were able to see the slide, we've got a range of tools and guides and information covering topics such as mental health, parenting support, and domestic abuse. And these, there you go. No, that's not it. They're available on our website. There's a range of material to support mindfulness, relaxation, to use a toolkit to assist with emotional regulation in general. It's because we understand that childhood trauma is a huge influence on domestic abuse, and we've come to realise that hurt people. So our website's library of trauma insight tools covers a range of material that acknowledges the impact of adverse childhood experiences. And it also highlights ways to promote recovery from past trauma, which our parents and other professionals are able to access. We also use an emotional safety plan, and I'm hoping Daisy's able to put that in the chat too. And we use this mainly pre-birth, but at other times when there's potential for heightened anxiety or stress. During this phase of safety planning, a parent gets a chance to identify what they need from others to support them and what they need to prepare for themselves, and words or items or symbols that can help them to cope with the stress, as well as identifying external or professional support for whatever the event's going to be. And there's space in the process for a parent to consider how they want to be spoken to, things they might not have might have to remember themselves, and to explore what it would take for them to feel heard or listened when the event's in the near future. Without prompts, I don't think I can remember the rest of the slides, but I know it went on to Q&A.
It did, Ronnie, and thank you so much. I'm sorry, hopefully everyone can see the slides. I'm going to hand back to, just conscious of the time. Thank you, Ronnie, to Daisy. Just to sum up.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thanks for persisting with our slide issues today. We have reached time, but if anyone wants to hang around for a couple minutes, I will throw some questions to the panel, but no pressure at all if you have to leave for further meetings. So feel free any of Susie, Judith, Ronnie to answer these, whoever you think will be best. I'll just put a couple out here. So we had a question right at the start of the session, which was a really helpful one. Jasmine asked, where are these hubs and how do people access? I think that's a very, very valid question. If anyone would like to give an answer for Jasmine.
Yeah, I'll defer to you, Suzanne.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Susie,
so
you go.
yeah, probably just safe to say that up to now, there have only been 75 local authorities who received funding to develop family hubs. So it may be that there aren't family hubs in your local area yet, but of course the expansion of those family hubs means that will roll out to many more. So yeah, certainly your safeguarding, your local safeguarding arrangements, whatever they are, local to you, should be able to point you in the direction of family hubs if they're there. For us in Blackpool, we've got local arrangements. We've got 3 family hubs across our localities, and we know that some areas continue to work on the family hub agenda without the funding. So they are out and about, but they aren't in every area yet.
And in London, we've been connected to family hubs from the outset of the trials in Westminster and Kensington and Chelsea, and also in Haringey. Haringey have 4 and are always looking to build. And Westminster and Kensington and Chelsea between them, I think 4 at the moment, but are looking to build.
Thank you both so much. I'm going to loop a couple of questions together for hopefully a bit of a joint response. Ravinda said, I contacted a local family hub to seek if they are providing any DV support groups to victims, but they confirmed they don't. We had a question from Catherine where she asked, you mentioned that there can be support to help with conflict and disagreements between parents. What kind of support is available? So I think that's my call perhaps to Ronnie and Susie again to share a bit more about what support there is for parental conflict, domestic abuse, domestic violence, and the hubs within which you both work.
Yeah. Domestic violence or domestic abuse, there's limited. Only Where for Baby's Sake are there, of course, but there are no other domestic abuse services working in any of the ones we're within. But there is a fathers group in one of the Haringey hubs as well that focuses in on male aggression too as part of it, and it's about becoming a good parent, a good father. And we've had some great conversations with them about the work they do.
So in Blackpool, yeah, so I think, as I said in one of my slides, we have got a level of integration in terms of the strategic partnership around domestic abuse. In Blackpool, I'll stick with domestic abuse first. So we obviously we commission a local provider for our kind of victims services, and they run some of their kind of access sessions through our family hubs, so drop-ins and specific appointments, but we don't run any groups in the family hub space. We do run an evidence-based programme, sounds very similar to what Ronnie mentioned, Caring Dads, which is for fathers who've been harmed others in terms of their abusive behaviour. That could include domestic abuse, but it might include harm to their child. We run For Baby's Sake here in Blackpool, and in terms of reducing parental conflict, I've got actually a link that I'll just share in the chat too. We've done a lot of work on reducing parental conflict in Blackpool, and we've developed a toolkit, a programme, and a 7-minute briefing, which I'll share in the chat, which has got a link to a video that we commissioned to be made in Blackpool, which is helps you to understand. There's some work in it that helps you just to understand the distinguishing reducing parental conflict from domestic abuse, but also some practical tools that you can access through there as well. So there's lots of information on the .gov website around reducing parental conflict, and I think we're waiting for next steps in terms of what the next phase of funding might be around reducing parental conflict. But I'll put that link in the chat and people can see the briefing.
Thank you so much, Susie. I think that's going to be all we've got time for today. But if anyone would like to reach out with any further questions for the panel or to continue discussions, I did pop my email in the chat just a minute ago to another inquiry. So do feel free to contact me and I can share them with our panelists. And you can see on the screen, hopefully, but if you can't, I've popped it in the chat as well, that we are running an event with Seed Talks next month, which will be our next kind of, public event opportunity. We'd love to see some of you there. Any last words from the panel before we wrap up?
Yeah, I think I just wanted to say, Daisy, that brilliant question around domestic abuse support and family hubs, that's something as a trust we're really advocating for at government level. So I'd encourage all of you, whether you've got an opportunity to influence at a local level or a national level, ask the question, ask of your family hubs, what are you going to provide around domestic abuse? Because it's so important that domestic abuse services are integrated in our communities, not something separate. And that speaks to everything we said around shame and stigma and the intersectional nature of domestic abuse. So if you can create that safe space, you're going to really support a lot more people being able to access and reach out for help. So we'll keep championing it and asking the question, but brilliant if you could do the same. Thank you.
Yeah, just a thanks for me. And again, apologies for the glitches in the IT. Hopefully it didn't detract from the quality of the webinar. So yeah, thanks and have a great afternoon, everyone. Thanks, Daisy.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Judith. And yes, we will send around the recording afterwards so everyone has access to it. Great. Thank you so much. Have a good afternoon.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.